What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Man, we had a lot of plans for the podcast today. So much stuff to go over, so many overreactions from week one of the NFL season. And then we ran into a doozy of a Monday Night Football game last night. Aaron Rodgers tearing his Achilles on the second, third play from scrimmage for the Jets. And then Josh Allen throwing the game away for the Bills after Zach Wilson comes in. So better believe we're going to dive into that. That's going to come up first. We're going to talk about Matt's Lions and go back to their big win over Kansas City last Thursday, and then share our biggest overreactions from week one on Sunday. That's coming up. Before we get started, as a reminder, we set up an email address, fouledOutsports@gmail.com. Place where you guys can reach out to us. Let us know how you feel about the podcast, what's working for you, what's not. We appreciate you guys listening. We'd really like to hear from you and get your feedback on the podcast as well. But Matt is coming on in just a minute to talk week one of the NFL season. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, ready to talk week one of the NFL season. Matt, just like Zach, we are back. Wilson, how are you doing?
I am extremely ready for Zach Wilson season. Let's go.
I feel like the Aaron Rodgers thing is somewhat our fault because we made the joke on the podcast last week. Like, watch Aaron Rodgers suck or watch Aaron Rodgers get hurt, and Zach Wilson steps in and leads this team to the playoffs. And man, that's where we're going to start. So let's jump into it. Monday Night Football. The Jets come away with one of the weirdest, most stunning wins I've ever seen in my entire life. The whole scene starts off with, these 9/11 memorials. They're playing at home in New York on 9/11 Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills, who have won the division the last couple of years. Aaron Rodgers runs out onto the field with the American flag after all the drama, like all the hype with the Jets offseason. Aaron Rodgers is finally here, finally leading this team. They're ready to go. Fourth play of their first offensive possession? Aaron Rodgers tears his Achilles. He is done for the entire season.
You lasted about as long as most American-made products.
Oof. I was trying to think of comps for what happened and thinking of after everything that happened with him this offseason, like I said, so much drama with him wanting to leave and wanting to go to the Jets, and the Jets are going out and they're getting Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb, and they're building this team for him
instead of better players.
They finally get Rodgers. There's all this hype around the Jets. They do Hard Knocks. Everybody's falling in love with Rodgers all over again. They're like, oh, this is going to be great. This team's going to be good. Just for their entire season to end before it even began, 4 plays in. I know that I comp everything to the Patriots. My team, you guys can thank my dad for that. This reminded me of 2008. Patriots were coming off that 18-1 season, and the very first play of the season, Tom Brady tears his ACL, and we're just done. And it's Matt Castle for the rest of the season. That was the only one I could think of.
Here's the thing, though. This is a win-win for me personally. Either their season's over and I'm right and the Jets aren't making the playoffs, right? Or they make the playoffs led by Zach Wilson, which is the biggest fuck you to Aaron Rodgers you could possibly have.
I was thinking today, do they bring somebody else in? And if they do, who is it?
Who is out there that you're gonna go get?
I have 3 options for you, and one of them is nightmare fuel for me. Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz,
Yeah, I know what you're. Yeah, I
Tom
know where you're going.
fucking Brady. I don't think Tom Brady would actually come back and play for them, but I think you make the call to him
Yeah,
just in
yeah,
case.
you make the call. At this point, there's a legitimate question if Carson Wentz is actually an upgrade over Zach Wilson.
I, I don't know
Like,
if that's more of an indictment on Carson Wentz or on Zach Wilson.
to Zach Wilson's credit, he's now beaten the Bills twice in his career.
Yeah, I was thinking about this and I was like, God, is that like the ultimate indictment against Zach Wilson? Is that like you bring in Aaron Rodgers and at least you're able to
Yeah,
explain to Zach, like, listen, you weren't great last season. We're gonna bring in this guy. He's a 4-time MVP. He's
yeah,
won a Super Bowl. Like he's gonna mentor you. We're gonna go with him. You'll be the backup. And then he gets injured in the first game, and Zach Wilson
yeah,
comes in and leads them to the win. Well, leads them
yeah.
in parentheses. And they're like, that was great, Zach, but we're gonna bring in Matt Ryan now, who was absolutely atrocious for the Colts last season.
I gotta believe Matt Ryan knows he's done. I think what happened last year. I know he loves the game and all that, but I think he even probably recognized like I don't got it anymore. If they're bringing someone in, they have to look at other people's rosters. One name that I've seen floated out there, and I honestly don't know how much of an improvement this will be, Tannehill. But like he was so bad this week that like again, don't know how much of an upgrade it is. And like if they are rolling with Malik Willis and Will Levis and they're willing to do that, then why are you bringing that guy in?
Yeah, Tannehill was so bad.
He
Oh my
is the reason
goodness.
they lost. Like he actively lost them that game.
Yeah, he was horrible. The one name that I thought was somewhat interesting that I could actually see is Gardner Minshew. He's
Yeah,
the Colts rolled with Anthony Richardson, who Anthony Richardson was by far the best rookie on
yeah.
Sunday, right? Even though he can't throw to the left side of the field. That's okay. They'll figure that
Hey,
out.
didn't not can't.
I sent Matt a passing chart from Anthony Richardson earlier today. He threw 37 passes, I think, on
Something like
Sunday,
that.
and 7 of them were to the left side of the field. And it was like, yeah, the interception was to the left, and then I think like 2 of the other 6 passes were completed, so not great. But I thought Richardson actually looked a lot better than Bryce or Stroud the other day.
Yeah, I mean
So
we'll get into that more later.
yeah, but
But yeah,
so they're rolling with him. The Colts are rolling with Richardson as their starter. They have Minshew as the backup. Like maybe you trade for a backup on someone else's team, but honestly, I don't know what any of these moves do for you.
yeah,
And it sucks because the Jets team that we saw last night made me feel incredibly validated in my offseason take that like this team is super talented. They have a good defense. If they can just get competent to above average quarterback play from Aaron Rodgers, they're going to be good this season. I felt justified in that take, but now that Aaron Rodgers is done for the year, I don't know. Like I look around and I don't know where they get competent quarterback play.
and not only that, but like every time Rogers dropped back before he got hurt, he was getting hit. Knowing Rogers, especially at this stage of his career, he's not going to play well when he's taking a lot of hits. Uh, you cannot convince me that out of the 6 division games, it they're winning more than 2 against these defenses with that kind of assault. Bill's going to eat him alive, and Miami's going to get after him too. That offensive line is a serious issue for them. And unfortunately, Rodgers already losing some of his mobility prior to getting hurt. Like they needed some sort of solution to that, and it did not appear that they have it.
Well, we're never gonna know because all we saw was 4 snaps. But
We also saw Zach Wilson running around for his life.
yeah,
So
and you said no more than 2, but they already won one. They already beat the Bills. Because speaking of,
yeah, the other ones are second.
yeah, speaking of actively losing your team the game, Mr. I'm the second best quarterback in the league, apparently, Josh Allen throwing the game away
Yeah,
for the Bills. Absolutely horrible Josh Allen game last night. I was kind of shocked
yeah,
that it was that bad.
I was too. And like, we've kind of started having this conversation already in the past when he comes up, but like, the more I see this, the more of an indictment this is on the coaching staff for me. No one is trying to rein him in. That is clear as day. Like, it is hero ball from kickoff until there's 3 zeros on the scoreboard. We see how this ends every time. Like, it's great when it works, but like when you do it as much as he does, you lose games because of it.
I 100% agree with you. And we've seen them lose weird games to much less talented teams
Mm-hmm.
quite often in Josh Allen's tenure. Like,
Yeah.
they'll go like 12-5 or whatever, but they'll lose to, they lost that. Remember that like
Yeah.
really weird game they lost to Jacksonville, like 9-6. Um,
Yeah.
they'll
Well,
lose those.
just let's say all he had to do was not turn the ball over 4 times. That's all he had to do. Three would have been sufficient. Like,
Yeah, let me read you a stat real quick. So Nick Wright tweeted this today, and I will not read many Nick Wright related items on this podcast. I think this is a first for me. But since week 1 of 2022, Josh Allen has played 19 games. He has 20 interceptions and 17 fumbles, averaging exactly 2 per game in that time. That is a lot. That's more
yeah,
than anybody else in the NFL.
maybe not as much on the air, but you and I have kind of talked about this before. Is that like with quarterbacks, you really don't reach that like supreme understanding of the game until like year 8, 9, 10, when you've just seen everything there possibly is to see. And when you don't have that yet, and you are the definition of a gunslinging quarterback, the only way to temper those turnovers is for the coaching staff to kind of rein you in a little bit, you know, give you some structure to limit that stuff. And like that was something that Stafford ended up needing at a certain point. And we finally got like peak level Stafford eventually, and it was great. We're not seeing any sort of support like that for Josh Allen. And like it's really frustrating because the rest of that team, I mean, that obviously like we have concerns about the lines to some degree, but like they're doing a lot of great things with the rest of that team, but it's just like okay, great, we hit on this like incredible talent here in Josh Allen. Like we're set here, we're just gonna leave that, and that's it. They're not doing anything to improve that.
You know who this team really misses? And I hate this guy, so like it's hard
Oh,
for me to say
I
this.
already know who you're gonna say.
Cole Beasley. I really like go back and look at when the Bills were like really really good.
Yeah,
I was just thinking about like you were talking about how the coaching staff doesn't want to rein in
yeah,
Josh Allen, and I was like, that the reason they don't is because you have games like the playoff game where he put up 6 touchdowns against the Patriots, or the
yeah.
13-second loss to Kansas City where he was like stunning in that game,
Yeah,
like absolutely
God
incredible.
mode.
Yeah, that he had Cole Beasley for that playoff run.
Yeah.
You know, Cole Beasley was the safety blanket that made everything okay when
Yeah.
there wasn't anything else. And it's like when they drafted
Yeah.
Khalil Shakur, I thought he was going to start filling that role. But right now, it's like you got Diggs and what? Like Gabe Davis has been
Yeah.
a bust
Yeah. I
for the
mean,
last couple of years. So
he needs a Cole Beasley, a Danny Amendola, a Hunter Renfro, like one of those guys that like, yeah, they aren't the most explosive, but like they are where they need to be when they need to be there, and they're super reliable and maybe take some of that pressure off of like feeling like you need to score a touchdown on every single play.
let me stop you because you did not put the proper respect on number one overall fantasy pick, Danny Amendola's name. It's the first time his name's been mentioned on the podcast this year, and I will not have him disrespected on this podcast. Yeah, I feel like that's exactly the disease for Josh Allen is that it looks like every play has to be a big play, right? And he's so
Yeah.
confident in his arm, and like God, who can
Mm-hmm.
blame him because he's probably got the strongest arm in the league.
Yeah. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it up there with anybody's. But you look at those interceptions last night, like he threw three to Jordan Whitehead, which is uh funny. Just Jordan Whitehead had an incentive in his contract where if he gets three or more interceptions this season, he gets $250,000. Boom. Week one, baby. Thanks, Josh Allen.
I bet you they met in the off season. They're like, hey, you helped me get this. I'll give you half.
Josh Allen like owed him money for some reason. But I mean, the interception number two is like Josh Allen gets out of the pocket and it's like a play where you very clearly should have just taken like the 3 yards that you could run and like slide down and let's get on to the next play or throw the ball out of bounds. And he decides he's going to whip it like 60 yards downfield. And he overthrew his receiver by a good 15 yards. And Whitehead intercepts that. Interception number three, he's trying to fit it into a super tight window down the sideline. And
Mm-hmm.
Whitehead steps right in front of it. And it's like, I think Josh Allen sees this stuff. Like, I think he can read the defense good enough.
Yeah.
But it's like that gunslinger, like a little bit overconfident, trying to make the big play. And I was thinking about it last night too.
Situational awareness. Like, what does the current moment call for?
It's just who he is, though, because like watch him run. He doesn't just go down. Like I was watching him last night. He
No.
took a huge shot on one of those
Yeah.
runs. And I was like, he had like plenty of time to slide. But no, it's that mentality of like, I'm gonna get the extra yards. I'm gonna take the hits. I'm gonna do this, this, and this, and
Well,
I'm gonna make the
and
big play.
yeah, and I think especially with the running, like he likes that part of it. I think he feels like he needs to be hit every now and then. I mean, Joe Burrow has said the exact same thing about himself. But like Joe Burrow understands that sometimes you just need to get 7 yards for a first down.
Yeah, this is the thing is like all of this comes back to he needs to play smarter.
Yeah.
It's like the old saying like work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's working really hard out there, and I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not afraid. He's trying to make the big play. I respect that, but this is the NFL. You need to be smarter, or else you're going to lose stupid games like this that you shouldn't lose.
Yeah.
Like, you said it. All he had to do was not turn it over 4 times, and they win.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all he had to do. They could have just kept handing the ball off to James Cook, and they would have been completely fine.
He's a likable guy too. I mean, he's said like in post game press conferences, like, yeah, well, it doesn't help when your quarterback plays like shit. Like,
No, it
like
doesn't, Josh.
he will freely admit when he's playing badly, and it's like great, but like, what are you gonna do about it, my man?
Yeah, this is my thing about Josh Allen, and I like Josh Allen fine enough. I
He's,
mean,
I think like we also very much quickly forget that, like, especially in the shadow of Patrick Mahomes, still young.
Yeah. I just feel like he's the guy that like people will make infinite amounts of excuses for,
Hmm.
and that he's not really held accountable by NFL fans for like how bad he is in some of these games. And like
Yeah.
the big takeaway from last night should be he literally threw his team out of this game. Like he lost this game. This L is on him.
Yeah.
There have been numerous instances where this happens and they're like, oh, well, he was hurt. He like, and like the narrative that's coming out today is like, well, they really need a number two receiver behind Stephon Diggs. And like, sure, but that
Few things
offense
can be
is,
true.
yeah, that offense is talented enough to have not done what they did last night, right? Like Gabe Davis is a pretty good number two, even though he hasn't lived up to the hype. You just drafted a tight
Yeah.
end. You got plenty of stuff. He's not
Hmm.
hurting for weapons, especially with Diggs out there. So some accountability is needed. And like he takes accountability
Yeah.
himself. And I feel like that's why we all like him so much. And we're just like, oh,
Yeah.
like you'll get him next time, Josh, where like other quarterbacks get fucking destroyed if they have that game that Josh Allen had last night.
God, if Jared Goff had that game, like, there would be literal like pitchforks and torches and all that shit.
Oh my God. Think about like if Dak Prescott had that game.
Well, I mean, he had a lot of them last year,
He's
so
had that game and we've seen what's happened to him and it's not the same response. Let's shift gears a little bit, get back in our way back machine to go back to Thursday night.
oh, what a night!
Your Motor City Kitties, the Detroit Lions, taking down the defending Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, 21-20. How did it feel?
Incredible. My only regret about what's happened since then is that we are no longer the only team with a victory.
It couldn't last forever, right? But great game to start off the season. I really thought the Lions just looked like a totally different team mentally on Thursday night. There's been a lot made of, oh, well, the Chiefs didn't have Chris Jones and Travis Kelsey and blah, blah, blah. But I think anytime you go into Patrick Mahomes' house and beat him, you know, I don't care who's missing or who's on the team. It's an impressive win to me.
Let's be real about that issue. How many times have the Lions had missing players for big games and nobody made any excuses for the Lions?
Yeah, but you don't have Patrick Mahomes. The people are going to make excuses for him. But like also just watching the Lions get screwed in the way that the Lions do again
Yeah.
on national television.
Literally every single play.
I was shocked that they had I forget the guy's name, but they have like the ref commentator guy who was like the
Yeah.
former head of officiating. He comes in and they're like, "What are you seeing?" And he's like, "Jawan Taylor is literally cheating every single play. I have no idea why they're not calling it." Like to see the former ref announcer guy call out the active refs that badly
Yeah.
during a game, I was completely stunned.
I don't think there's been any commentary on it since the game either.
No, it happened during the game. It was a
Yeah.
big deal Thursday night, and then we just played football Sunday, and it was completely forgot about. But
Yeah.
basically, Jawan Taylor, the right tackle for the Chiefs, lined up against Aiden Hutchinson, probably the best player on the Lions. Like it's between him and Amon Ra, right? So
Right.
he's not only illegally lined up every single play where he's already too far back, giving him a huge advantage, but he's also false starting every single play. So by the time that Aiden Hutchinson gets to him, he's like 5 to 6, 7 yards back from where he should be. And it create like they talked about it during the game too, which I
Yeah.
was shocked is like it creates a very unfair advantage for the offensive lineman to have that kind of head start on the defensive lineman.
Yeah.
And Aiden Hutchinson was still getting there.
He was still whooping his ass.
Just if they had made Jawan Taylor line up where an offensive tackle is supposed to line up, and snap the ball when the ball's like not false start and not cheat, Aiden
Yeah.
Hutchinson would have wrecked that game. I really
Yeah.
think he could have had a much bigger game.
He was still getting pressure, right? He wasn't able look, if you're able to line up a yard off the ball and false start every play, you better not give up a fucking sack. Still, like they couldn't run a play to Aiden's side of the ball because Hutchinson was in the play every single time.
He was awesome. Kaminsky, I thought, was really good too.
Kaminsky is one of the most underrated players, I feel like. He's just one of those guys that like plays a very non-glamorous role, but he plays it at an all-star level. Like he sets up all of the like stunts and stuff like that so that other guys can be the guys who finish. But you know, he even had a couple of plays in that game where he was the guy who finally got, his hands on the ball carrier.
Yeah, I was impressed by him. He stood out to me, but really the game felt like a turning point for the Lions franchise to me because the typical Lions that we've watched for the last 20 seasons,
Yeah.
these things would happen. It would be like, okay, Kansas City, they don't have Kelsey, they don't have Chris Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jawan Taylor is like cheating the whole time. And the Lions would lose that game. We'd be sitting here doing the podcast today and just being like, oh, if it wasn't for that damn, like they would have just called Jawan Taylor, the Lions would have won. It's always that like if this
Yeah.
would have just
If
happened or
they
that would
would
have just
have,
happened.
yep.
But this time they did.
Yeah, they just did it.
They did it, and they did it against the best quarterback in the league on the road. So, like, yeah, I know Kelsey and Jones didn't play, and like you can if and but me all day and say, like, well, if they had him, this would have happened. That
right.
The Lions went in, they beat Kansas City at home. I'm impressed. I think everybody should be enjoying their blue Kool-Aid.
Yeah, well, and I feel like with the Chris Jones things too, like everyone's pretending like Kansas City doesn't have a good defense beyond him. One great player is not a good defense make. That you don't win a Super Bowl based on that. There's a lot of unsung heroes on that Kansas City defense. They didn't make it easy on the Lions in that game, but like you saw when plays needed to be made at the end of the game, they executed their play calls exactly the way they needed to be executed. And they were able to take control. While maybe not the most exciting thing, but one of the most beautiful things to see your team do, run out the clock.
It's exciting when you're up by 1 in Kansas City and you run the clock out for the win. Like, yeah, there were so many points in that game though where I thought, oh yeah, here comes Patrick Mahomes. Like, this is it. Kind of moment. The Lions are up 1. They have the ball at about the 50-yard line, and they go for it on 4th and get stuffed. And Patrick Mahomes gets the ball back, and I was like, oh, well, it's going to be one of those games where it's like the underdog Lions, they gave them everything they could handle, but Patrick Mahomes just got the ball, and that was it.
Well, for me, the moment where I was like, oh shit, here we go again, was the Cam Sutton pass interference. Not that like that call wasn't like legitimate pass interference. I just didn't feel like that was the level of physicality that they were calling the rest of the game. But like I was like, oh, this is the play where they move 50 yards downfield on a flag, and that completely flips the script on the game. But it didn't. The Lions got right back in control of the game. That's different. We've seen Lions teams before kind of look like they're on the upturn, and they have a big game like this where it's a huge opportunity for them to show themselves. There's at the end of the day, like two kinds of teams. There's teams that get it done, there's teams that don't. And they got it done. It's really, really nice for your team to be one of those teams because we're going to talk about some teams that are clearly not those teams later.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong. Kelsey is a very special player. And like,
Oh, for sure.
if he's in the lineup, is he worth 1 point? Like, yeah, he's probably worth a lot more than that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that I'm not like not impressed by the Lions just because Kelsey didn't play.
I'm not going to downplay the element that Kelsey certainly was being heavily missed there. But like, it's not like we weren't missing an offensive weapon who's maybe not on the same caliber, but like when you're missing a weapon, you got to find other ways to move the ball. And like to their credit, at a lot of points they did, but not consistently enough to win the game. And like that's what good football teams do. They solve the problem when it comes up, and you either do it or you don't. Kansas City Chiefs didn't. The Lions did.
So did you send Kadarius Toney like a gift basket? Are you making a charitable
You
donation
know,
in his
I
name?
thought about it, but he just would have dropped it.
Oof. Yeah, I mean that was the big problem for the Chiefs is that they had to fill that gap, right? Like you got to have somebody step
Yeah,
up. And man, I hate to say this about our guy too, but Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore were not it on
yeah,
Thursday. Especially Toney, man. I obviously like the really bad deflection that leads to one of my guys, Brian Branch, pick six.
yeah.
Huge drop, like multiple huge drops by Toney. It just seemed like whenever they needed a big play, they're like, all right, we're going to go to Kadarius Toney, or like, Patrick Mahomes would make something out of nothing and Toney would be open, or like Sky Moore would be open. Toney cannot catch it to save his life. And Sky Moore is, I didn't know that he was like 4'8". I think he's listed at like 6 foot, but he looks so short. There were multiple passes where like Mahomes lobbed it to him and he was just too short to get a finger on it, couldn't pull it down. Like, really rough day for the Kansas City receiving core. And I don't know that gets better anytime soon. Like, I don't know if you saw this
Well,
report, but Cavis Cavis Trelsey, Travis Kelsey hyperextended his knee. And there was a
mhm.
report that came out that said they were worried that it was a season ending injury at first. And they're like, oh no, it turns out it's just a deep bone bruise and he'll be back next week against Jacksonville. That's a pretty big gap between those two things. Like, are you sure he's going to be back and be 100%? I don't know. We're
I
going to have to see it on
I
Sunday.
I also don't really know how much I'd buy the reports that they were like really worried it was a season-ending injury. I think that kind of sounds a lot like, okay, well, we can get a lot of clicks from this. They didn't say it wasn't a season-ending injury, so
Hmm?
we can pass it off. But yeah, I don't know. I think there could be a lot of things going on there too. Like, that receiving core by and large is pretty young. So them having come off a Super Bowl and then there's their ring ceremony, they're probably feeling themselves a little bit much and weren't necessarily playing to their capabilities. I mean, I think that there certainly could be an element of that to the whole team, right? Uh, but yeah, I one way or another, like whatever the cause is, they have to be better the rest of the year because like teams are absolutely going to look at that issue and say, okay, we can exploit that.
Yeah. It's an interesting spot for Kansas City now, too, because starting the season 0-1, not something they've done a lot with Patrick Mahomes, if at all. Now going to Jacksonville on Sunday.
Yep.
Not going to be an easy game, especially not traveling across the country to go play in the swampy, musty ass stadium that is Jacksonville. So
It's the one big shower fart.
if they start 0-2, We'll see. Congratulations on the win.
Woo!
Happy for you guys. I had my buddy that I work with text me the other day and said, I feel like I shouldn't be drinking the blue Kool-Aid because Kelsey and Jones didn't play. And I was like, just enjoy the Kool-Aid, man. Just enjoy it. Like, there's no reason not to.
Wait, where did you get it from?
Oof. So let's go on to Sunday. And the original plan for the pod before all this craziness happened was that we were going to do the biggest overreactions from week 1 of the NFL season. So I'm going to give you a blatant overreaction from what we saw on Sunday. And then we're going to give the like correct take or like how we feel about it. Basically, like, is the overreaction correct? If it's not correct, what is the reasonable level-headed take we should take away from the first week of football?
Naturally.
Overreaction number 1, our Super Bowl picks, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Seattle Sea Chickens, are complete bust, and we are screwed. The Bengals lost 24-3 to the Browns, and Joe Burrow was abysmal on Sunday. The
Yeah.
Sea Chickens stomped 30-13 to the Rams, getting absolutely shredded by Matt Stafford, Puka Nuke, and Tutu Atwell. That's what I'm calling Puka Nakua from now on. He's Puka
Yeah.
Nuke to me.
I mean, it's fitting. Like, if he played more games in college, he would have been drafted a lot higher.
I mean, he Puka Nuked the Seattle Sea Chickens on Sunday, man. They got Puka Nuked.
Yeah.
That's a fucking shirt right there. You just got Puka Nuked.
I'd wear the shit out of that.
Find it in the fake merchandise store immediately after this episode drops. But yeah, I mean, 119 yards for Tutu Atwell, 119 yards for Puka Nuke on 10 catches. So, and Stafford looked awesome.
Yeah, turns out when he is healthy, he's still one of the best.
So do you agree with the take? Are we screwed, or is this an overreaction?
No, this is absolutely an overreaction. Look, especially like you look at the Seahawks, anytime you lose both of your starting tackles in a game and the other team's defensive line has Aaron Donald, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, I agree. It's obviously a big overreaction. Seattle, Devin Witherspoon didn't play. You know, that was one of the big additions this offseason is to add him to that secondary. I'm a little concerned about them, just watching them get like manhandled by the Rams and watching both those receivers go off. Like it's one thing if Cooper Kupp has like 230 yards and you lose that game. It's completely another thing if Tutu Atwell, who is the first receiver under 180 pounds to have 100 yards in an NFL game since Steve Smith retired or whatever the last one was, goes off on you and you get beat by rookie Puka Nuke. On the Cincinnati side, like, yeah, Cincinnati looked really bad, but I feel like this is just Cincinnati's thing now. Like, we used to say this, my dad and I used to talk about this with the Patriots every year. They would start slow. They'd be, 3-3, 2-4, whatever, and then they would pick it up. We saw this exact movie with the Bengals last year where Joe Burrow missed significant time during training camp. They came out, they got stomped each of the first 2 weeks, and Joe Burrow got sacked like 70 times. And then they started picking it up. I would bet you actually that the Bengals probably lose to the Ravens this week as well, and then start getting their shit together, and they'll be there when it matters.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, both of these teams are gonna be in the thick of it at the end of the season. Obviously, maybe they win like a game or two less than we originally expected because of this, but like, they're still absolutely players.
My takeaways from these games, though, is that, like, one, I do think that we kind of underrate the importance of a great quarterback, even if the rest of the team is not amazing.
Yeah.
Stafford didn't get enough credit this offseason. And like, we'll see how the rest of the year goes for him.
Yeah.
But like, he comes back. He was hurt last year. He comes back and has like an excellent game right off the bat.
Yeah.
It's hard to underrate the importance of having a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who are like, really like you're gonna draft Tutu Atwell, who's like one of the smallest wide receivers in the NFL right now for someone like Stafford, but like he clearly showed that give me whoever you got, I can make it work if I'm healthy.
Yeah, my other takeaway is that Cleveland's defense might be good.
They,
They might be.
that was never my concern about Cleveland.
Yeah,
And quite frankly, Deshaun Watson still sucked ass.
yeah. Let me change that. Cleveland's defense might be really good, like
Yeah.
really, really good,
Cleveland's defense might be good enough to deal with Deshaun Watson.
possibly. Uh, Overreaction number two: the Packers have yet another franchise quarterback. My boy, Jordan Love, beautiful sight, goes 15 for 27, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, one of only 3 quarterbacks on Sunday to throw 3 or more. Obviously not an overreaction. Let's move on to the next one. He's great.
It's only not an overreaction if he gets to play this Bears defense every week because he was basically throwing against air. Yeah, the difficulty setting was set as low as it possibly could have, but he did what he needed to do with what was set ahead of him. So
Yeah, the obvious correct reaction here is like it's wait and see. He's going to have a much tougher challenge against Jesse Bates in the Atlanta Falcons
yeah, I mean,
on
let's see
Sunday.
him play an actual NFL team.
I like that the Falcons are an actual NFL team
Yeah,
after how much stock I put into them. This is like my game of the year on Sunday. The Green Bay Packers, who I picked to make the wild card, the Falcons, who I'm all in on. They're both 1-0. Someone's going 2-0. I'm watching that game on Sunday. That's like I'm sitting down on the couch. I'm watching that shit. Yeah, I thought like he actually left some opportunity on the field on Sunday as well. Like you can kind of say this both ways, right? Like a lot of his yards came from like they had a 51-yard screen to Aaron Jones. They had a couple like busted coverages that they took advantage of. They also left some opportunity on the table by like poor routes run by some of the young guys. You know, Jordan Love, a little bit off target on some throws, but like overall, much better than what we've seen out of Jordan Love to date.
yeah. I mean, definitely that the bar was set pretty low. It helps when you get like 150 yards on busted coverages where there's no one within 15 yards of the wide receiver. But like, hey, it is much better than not getting those yards when you get that kind of coverage. So
Yeah, right. I mean, what we had seen out of Jordan Love to date was suggestive that those yards would not have been achieved. So it's a step in the right direction.
yeah,
But
for sure.
you kind of alluded to it. The correct reaction here might also be that the Bears are going to have the number one pick again because I don't know what that was on Sunday. That was horrible. I thought they were the second worst team I saw on Sunday.
Second might be being kind of nice to them. I know the other team you're thinking of was pretty bad, but like, holy shit! Like, there's got to always be a tie. This this was one of the most universally poor performances I have ever seen from anyone.
I actually am really excited for Green Bay versus the Falcons on
Yeah,
Sunday because like Jesse Bates was. Well, we're going to talk about Jesse Bates a little bit later, but he was amazing. The Falcons' defense looked light years better than where it had been before. Granted, they were playing a rookie quarterback and a bad offense in Carolina, but I want to see how Jordan Love does against Jesse Bates on Sunday. Overreaction number three: Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos are unfixable. You know, they made a big deal about Sean Payton coming in. They're like, Sean Payton, he's a great coach. He's going to turn this team around. He's going to get these guys like fix Russell Wilson. He told Russell Wilson, you got to stop caring so much about kissing babies and you got to go out and play football. The Broncos lost 17-16 on Sunday. This might just be an irredeemable mess until Russell Wilson's contract is up.
I've been firmly in the camp that like there's no fixing Russell Wilson for quite some time now. However, almost might be worth it to do whatever you need to do roster wise to cut him before this season is over and just start playing for your next quarterback.
Just eat that $120 million dead cap hit or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
It's massive. It's like,
yeah, I'd have to look at it, but like if they cut him now, it'd still technically be a post June 1 cut. So there would technically be some sort of savings on it, but it's still gonna be like rough. As opposed to like if they had cut him prior to June 1. That's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
the dead cap is a
It's
hundred,
still gonna be like 107, right?
literally $107 million dead cap hit.
Yeah.
They cut him. Brutal.
Yeah, as opposed to like 120, it would have been 4.
Yeah. So there's a savings there, technically. I think like I'm on the same page with you. I think that this overreaction is just correct. Like I think this is actually the correct reaction is that this Russell Wilson deal for the Broncos is going to go down as like one of the worst trades that we have ever seen, considering what they gave up.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start looking at who those picks are and like it's not pretty because that was the Devin Witherspoon pick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I I actually I'll tell you on Sunday, I didn't watch the game. I caught up on the film later as I do with some of the games I don't I like I enjoy the games I want to enjoy on Sunday. I go back and do the film study on Monday and Tuesday before we do the pod. But I was kind of looking at my phone and I was like, oh man, Russell Wilson's got like 2 touchdowns in the first half. He's throwing the ball pretty good. The final stat line, he was 27 of 34. Not bad. That's pretty good. 177 yards, two
Yeah.
touchdowns. That is bad. That yards per attempt is bad. And like yards per attempt is like the key indicator of when a quarterback is falling off the cliff. And his yards per attempt is so bad right now.
There's a few that you've really got to look at. Like obviously yards per attempt is one of them, and then like you really need to see that ratio of like touchdown percentage versus interception percentage. And it's just not been kind to him of late.
Yeah,
Like
when he was really good, his yards per attempt was like 8.3, 7.7,
mhm.
8.18. It's just it was 7.3 last year, which was the lowest of his career except for like 1 year in Seattle. It was 5.2 the other day. Like it's not good. I honestly felt like what cost him that game on Sunday was not only Russell Wilson, but also Sean Payton's arrogance of just like he starts the game with an onside kick. It's just like he's like, oh, I'm Sean Payton. This is my thing. I did this at halftime in the Super Bowl. Like, the Raiders recover, they go down and score. And it's like they only scored 17 points and you gave them half of a field on their first drive. Congratulations. I don't think Sean Payton is that great of a coach, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
He held Drew Brees back in New Orleans.
I'm not gonna speak ill of Sean Payton back when he was in New Orleans. What I will say is I am always very wary of a head coach that retires for a year or two in the NFL and then is like, oh, you're gonna pay me a shit ton of money to save your franchise? Yeah, I'll come back.
I'm back, baby. Yeah, not great. We will be picking against Denver in the elimination pool this season. It'll be happening. Next overreaction. Tyreek Hill is the most dangerous weapon in all of football. Just period. Not the most dangerous receiver, not the most dangerous, the single most dangerous weapon in all of football. 11 catches, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Chargers on Sunday. As Miami won the most exciting game of the weekend, 36-34.
No notes. what do you do about that guy?
Just absolutely cook the Chargers every which way. Like it's amazing because he's like my height. He's like 5'10", right?
Yeah.
And he's just open every single play because of the combination of speed and route running ability. And
Yeah.
then like they get down to the red zone and they throw him like jump ball fade and he wins that too. It's like this guy's 5'10" and he's winning jump ball fades in the end zone.
Yeah.
He was unstoppable
So
on
that's
Sunday.
something that like he's always been great at is like winning contested catches that nobody ever gave him credit for in Kansas City. But like he's always been really good at that for whatever reason. Uh he's just got the surprising amount of verticality and like he's a lot stronger than people think. But like I think the thing that sets him apart from all these other speed guys, aside from like, just saying route running, but like nobody to the degree that he can. Obviously, Waddle's got an element of it, but to the degree that he can move at that speed, but like stop and change direction on a dime. Like,
It's not only like the track speed, it's the agility and
yeah,
the acceleration to
yeah,
go from 0 to 100 as fast as he does is
yeah,
incredible. My only note on this overreaction was that Justin Jefferson is still playing football, but like honestly, just the combination of all of the things Tyreek Hill brings to the
yeah,
table in the offense that he's in and the way that Mike McDaniel calls that offense, I don't think that there's anything scarier in the league than playing him. And
yeah.
I wait, who did the Dolphins play on Sunday? Oh, that's right. It's my fucking team. Sunday night. God dang it. I am not looking forward to it. I think Bill will have some interesting concepts to throw at Tyreek. Uh,
Yeah.
but man, I don't think that there's anybody scarier in the NFL right now. Maybe Patrick Mahomes. But like that's the list. It's Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, and those two guys used to play together.
And they had this guy that they also played with who's like kind of good sometimes named Cavis Trelsey.
Yeah, my boy Cavis Trelsey. The You think Patrick Mahomes was like sitting there on Sunday and watching Tyreek Hill grill the Chargers? It was just like, like we won the Super Bowl last year without him, but God, I miss
Yeah.
that guy. I miss having that weapon out on the field. Last overreaction from Sunday, the Sunday night game. Danny Dimes absolutely robbed the New York Giants this offseason. After last year, they gave him a 4-year, $160 million deal, making him one of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the league, only for him to come out and go 15 for 28, 104 yards, 2 picks against Dallas in a 40-0 loss at home Sunday night. I alluded to it earlier. The Giants were the worst team I saw this weekend. It was bad.
That was a game where it's just like none of you are ready to play, clearly, which is kind of hard to fathom when you're starting the season off against a division rival.
Well, the whole like everybody just slobbering and like tripping all over themselves to compliment Brian Dayball this offseason. I get it. He's a great coach. His
Yeah.
team was not ready for that game.
No.
They didn't look like they were
He
playing the same sport as the Dallas Cowboys.
no, like he absolutely deserves criticism for that. And like that, it's a huge concern for them this year. You should be able to at least like reflect on that game, be like, all right, well, we need to learn from our mistakes here, right? There's nothing to take away from that game. There's nothing to learn from it.
I have a takeaway. I gave
Other
you
than
the
that, they're bad.
I gave you the takeaway. The New York Giants need to hire a lawyer and sue Danny Dimes. This is fraud at the highest level. You can't do this. We can't let him get away with it.
He can't keep getting away with this.
He is like the modern day John Dillinger. He freaking robbed these guys, took them for all they're worth. This is horrible. This contract is the worst one since Russell Wilson. This is bad. The good, like the honest reaction.
I mean, it was like realistically like a 1 or 2 year deal, but
yeah, no, the level-headed reaction is that like it'll probably be better this season than it was on Sunday. They play the Cardinals. The Giants play the Cardinals on Sunday this week, which is like a good get right game
if it's
for them.
not better, then holy shit, they are in trouble.
Yeah, well, if it's not better, they're going to be drafting Drake May or Shadur Sanders because Shadur Sanders has now jumped into the top 10 of most boards, which,
yeah.
I mean, see. Let's let Shadur play a real football team first. Right. Like I'll throw it out there. He's been awesome. Colorado has been super fun to watch. And I made a ton of money on them over the weekend because minus 2.5 against Nebraska was like the dumbest line I've ever seen in my life. But
it's like Nebraska, they're not good.
I know it's been 2 games. 2 games. Let's just like they're going to play Colorado State. They're going to absolutely Schmeckledorf Colorado State on Saturday. And they're going to go into that week 4 game against Oregon in Oregon, undefeated against an undefeated Oregon team. Yes, please. I'm so here for that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
The Danny Dimes thing was really bad. I think quarterbacks who have one good year under their belt are like the most dangerous asset in all of football. You know, think like Danny was not good for years, has the awesome season last year, and they're like, all right, I guess we got to pay him.
I wouldn't even say he had a good year. He had an acceptable year.
Yeah. He was like, I mean, they went 9-7-1 or whatever. They were 9-6.
Right, but like in terms of like what he did production wise, like it was an acceptable year, but it wasn't like, oh man, this is good.
Yeah, but like I mean, he was fine. But I also think about like the 49ers trading up for Trey Lance after he had like the one good season in college.
Yep.
The Bears taking Trubisky after he had the one good year. You know, and now we got to look at like Kenny Pickett. I don't know. Is Kenny Pickett good? He didn't look like it on Sunday. He was not good for years at Pitt. He has the one big year, his senior year, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, Kenny Pickett. So, like, we'll see on him, but I just think it's the most dangerous gamble in sports to like, hey, we're going to draft this guy super high or we're going to pay this guy who had one good year in college. I'd rather have, like, you know, look at Brock Purdy. Multiple good years.
I really thought you were just going to say I would rather have Caleb Williams.
Actually, like the first name that popped in my head was like, I would rather just have Caleb Williams, who like is going to win 2 Heismans and then go to the NFL. We can't all have Caleb Williams. We all could have had Brock Purdy, who had multiple good years at Iowa State, right? Just not excellent, but
literally everyone could have had him multiple times.
It's very dangerous to bet on those guys. And it showed on Sunday, man. They were not ready to play that game. Dallas looked awesome.
Yeah, we alluded to Anthony Richardson earlier. Like, my overreaction that honestly I'm all in on is that he is the fucking truth. Like, I don't care that he only threw to the left side 7 times. Like, he's got it. He just does. He picks up information quickly, but like he's got all the physical talent, and we've seen those guys come into the NFL before, and like Josh Allen was one of them. They don't look good. He fucking looked good. He had his, you know, welcome to the NFL moment where he got picked off, but like by and large, dude could play.
This is my lesson from Sunday, is that we should not draft quarterbacks who had one good year in college. We should draft quarterbacks who had no good years in college, like Anthony Richardson.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was awesome. I really thought he was the best rookie quarterback that we saw
Yeah.
this weekend. Um, Not only, with his arm, but running the ball as well.
Hmm.
His situation, the game that he was playing in, I think was a little bit better than like Stroud having to go up against the Ravens or Bryce Young having to play in Atlanta. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought he looked good.
You see the way he responded, and then you see how I don't want to necessarily like throw these other rookie QBs under the bus, but like look, like that how you respond to that first moment, I do think does mean something. And he hit the ground running, and hey, like Stroud and Bryce Young, which we're both big on Bryce Young. Like I believe that he's going to turn it around. Uh,
Yeah,
but
I mean
like
they're
they,
rookies. They're rookies playing their first game at the hardest
yep,
position to transition
yeah,
to in the NFL. Like,
right,
they'll be
and
fine.
right, and let's be honest, neither one of them really had much on the outside to throw to. Week two is your chance to make a statement. You saw what he did.
Yeah, I really thought that Richardson looked as good as you could have expected him to look.
Yeah,
The detractors, I think, were eating a lot of crow on Sunday because I think
yeah,
people expected him to come in and just be throwing the ball like all over the yard. And he had the welcome to the NFL moment you referenced. He had a couple passes that just sailed. But I
yeah,
looking at how they used him in Shane Steichen's offense, I was like, yeah, I could see the like Jalen Hurts progression here where he has
yep,
a couple years where he's not super accurate, but they use his legs a lot, and then he really starts
hmm,
turning it on a couple years from now. And he,
yeah,
with the physical talent he has, that dude is going to be super dangerous in a couple
yeah.
years.
Yeah, I think we'll see more consistency with his accuracy once he really gets his footwork down, because that was always pretty inconsistent in college. Uh, but man, like the stuff you can't teach, it was on full display.
Yeah, I think him versus Stroud this weekend is going to be really fun. Uh, I'll catch it. That's going to be one of those games I catch up on film study on Monday and Tuesday because it's not going to be on my TV. But you know, it's just setting the stage between the two of them for what you would hope is many, many matchups down the road of guys that were drafted together. And like, we're going to probably be sitting here next week and just being like, God, Houston should have drafted Richardson, my opinion. But
I mean, we might be sitting here in a few weeks and being like, man, Chicago should have drafted Richardson.
everyone should have. All right. So last thing before we sign off, we forgot this last week. It's
Yeah.
disappointed. I was listening back to the podcast and I was like, I cannot believe we forgot to make the eliminator pool pick on the podcast. We went with Washington after some internal debate between going either the Commanders or the Ravens last week. We went Washington. Washington scared the absolute piss out of me. They really looked like they were not going to get it done against Josh Dobbs and the Arizona Cardinals. And I was like, oh my God, why did we pick Washington? This is stupid. They won. We're alive. We don't have to pick Washington again, even though I know they were a playoff team for you. So let's hope they get it together.
They're gonna win like 12 games now, but that was sad.
They're going to win 12 games, but they're going to win them all like the same way they won on Sunday, where it's like super sloppy and you think they're going to lose the whole time. And then Sam Howell like runs for a touchdown and you're like, oh, thank God. Couple, in-
Essentially.
Couple interesting ones this week. Uh, as a reminder to the fans, we have some rules we try to follow when we make the picks. You obviously want to get the best team you can against the worst team you can. The first rule of the eliminator pool is do not play games. People
Yeah.
like get cute. They want to save teams for later. They're like, oh, I'm not going to pick Kansas City because I want to pick them in week 14 against so and so. You pull shit like that, you're not going to be alive to pick those teams in week 14. Do not pick division games if you can help it. I think
Yeah.
Jacksonville was a prime example of this last week. They were down like 21-17 late in the game. And it's like, oh God, like Jacksonville's going to screw us because they're playing a division game against Anthony Richardson and the Colts. They pulled it out, but it's like you see division games either be super close and make you sweat it out, or they just straight up lose. Last one is I like to try to take home teams. We've talked on the podcast about like how home field advantage is not as much of an advantage as it used to be. But I would still like, I'm always more comfortable still having the home team than the road team because like weird stuff happens. That said, oh, last rule, try to stay away from Thursday nights.
Yeah.
Thursday nights are the weirdest nights.
Yeah. Or overseas games.
Yes, overseas games.
Always just don't even touch an overseas game. There's gonna be another game you can pick. Literally any other game.
Yeah, that's a good call. Those are the rules. 5 rules. I feel like I'm like the person that's like, we have 3 rules, and then we name 4, and we're like 4 rules. Just kidding. There's 5.
7 rules.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. So a couple options this week. Eagles versus the Vikings. The Eagles are at home, but that's on Thursday night. There's the Bills at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Lions at home for the Seahawks. And then the other one that stuck out to me was the Jets on the road. You got the Cowboys at home against the Jets. Also, the Giants on the road against the Cardinals. The one that I'm thinking we should go with is like, okay, we got to get the best team we can against the worst team we can. I like Bills versus Raiders. Bills at home against the Raiders. It's a big bounce back spot for Josh Allen and the Bills. I think they're going to take out all of their frustrations from Monday night on the Raiders, who did not look good on Sunday.
Yeah.
Do we have concurrence there?
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's still hard to get 4 turnovers out of my head, but I logically know that has to be the pick.
Yeah, I didn't love the picks that have the highest percentage right now. The Bills are the highest percent at like almost 28% of the pick. The Eagles have 9.5% of the pool picking them. I don't love it. It's on Thursday. I don't know. The San Francisco 49ers have 9% of the pick at the Rams. It's a division game.
No.
No.
Especially with Stafford looking good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the best quarterback just wins.
And then the Giants on the road against the Cardinals. I'm not trusting the Giants right now. Not after what I saw on Sunday. I can't do it. The Cardinals are going to be that team that bites us in the ass this year. I felt it on Sunday. People are going to ride just picking against the Cardinals every week. And then they're going to beat somebody like really good. Like they're going to beat the 49ers. And it's going to knock out like 50% of the pool that week.
Well, like here's the thing about the Cardinals is the organization is actively trying to tank. But like the coaches and the players on that roster still need to make their living. Even with the organization trying to do that, like I think that like almost stokes the fires of those players even more. So like, yeah, they're gonna look really bad some weeks because they are, but like there's gonna be certain games where maybe they're just a little bit better of a matchup and like they're just really keyed up and ready to go. And sometimes that ankle biter just bites in the right spot.
It's gonna get somebody this season, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So we're going Bills we got Bills at home against the Raiders. I feel good with that pick. I feel like this is a bounce back game against a team that is not very good in the Raiders.
Yeah.
So, but that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Twitter at Fouled Out Sports. You can find Matt on Twitter at Matador_defense. And you can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It's a long name, but you can't miss it. Matt, great week 1. So good to have football back and then get on this podcast and talk about football that actually happened and is going to happen again this week. Starting on Thursday with the Vikings visiting the Eagles. Then you got college football all day Saturday and then another great day of NFL football on Sunday. For some reason, 2 Monday night games.
They used to do that on the opening weekend. And for whatever reason, they pushed it this year.
But they're also on at the same time. One starts at
The
7. Yeah, one starts at 7:15. The other starts at 8:15. Week 2 and week 3.
fuck?
It is a very confusing scheduling by the NFL. But hey, you know what? I enjoyed yesterday. Like, I worked all day, came home, spent some time with my wife and my son. I got to watch a Monday Night Football game. It's like, hell yeah, man. It ended up being a weird game, but it's like Mondays are just better during the football season. So
I
you guys
mean,
want to
at
give
this
me,
point, that's just what you should expect when you watch the Buffalo Bills.
yeah, I mean, you guys want to give me 2 football games to watch on Monday? I'm in, man. I can flip back and forth, whatever game's better. So, but all right, my friend, enjoy the football this weekend. I will talk to you soon.
Yep. Take care of your Achilles.
Oh, God. Bye, guys. Bye,
Bye,
Robin.
Robin.